do you accept that the Israeli plan, as reported by Haaretz, as discussed openly by ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, as backed by the President of the United States, is forced ethnic cleansing?
I think we have, as recently as yesterday, the Prime Minister of Israel talking about forced migration into certain areas and then potentially out of the country. That is not legal. That is not on any international standard since World War II. And I've been clear about that. So I would ask for a little bit of an open mind.
Well, what I would ask...
Instead of answering, she does everything possible to dodge the question, sidestepping, deflecting, anything but giving a straight answer. It's not surprising, though. Senator Slotkin has received over $570,000 in campaign donations from AIPAC, one of the most influential pro-Israel lobbying groups in Washington. That kind of support often comes with political expectations, and it explains why she avoids taking a clear stance when human rights questions arise. Under the Geneva Convention, forcibly transferring or deporting civilians from occupied land is considered a war crime, and according to the UN and Human Rights Watch, more than 1.9 million Palestinians, nearly 90% of Gaza's population, have already been displaced. So when a US senator dodges a question this serious, it's not neutrality, it's a calculated silence to protect political interests, even when human rights are at stake.
Because so far what we've seen, I mean, you voted for some of the aid that's been used to massacre children and innocents. You know, you have backed Israel, as far as I can tell, you know, from your voting record at almost every turn. You voted for a definition of anti-Semitism that would, you know, codify anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. You voted as a member of the House to sanction the ICC for indicting Benjamin Netanyahu, who you just admitted is a war criminal, you know, by your own words. So are you going to join Senator Angus King, Senator Bernie Sanders in saying no more aid to this country that is committing war crimes against innocent civilians?
I think the first thing, if you're asking about what to do with power, and I would offer that right now Democrats own nothing in Washington. So
don't play powerless with me. You're a United States senator. There are things you can do.
In terms of who runs our foreign policy, I just think it's interesting, right, that there was a ton of protests when Democrats were in charge.
There was a protest in Manhattan yesterday.
The host points out something obvious. Elissa Slotkin actually has influence. She's a senator. She sits in rooms where decisions are made. She could raise her voice against the humanitarian crisis, or at least question where U.S. aid is going. But when asked about cutting aid to Israel, aid that's being used in a war causing thousands of civilian deaths, she deflects again. Her answer: Democrats don't have power in Washington. We don't control foreign policy. That's simply not true. Congress votes on every aid package. She voted for military funding to Israel. That's active participation, not helplessness. This response shows her priority, maintaining political alignment with Washington's pro-Israel stance, even if it means staying silent about human rights violations. So when she claims her hands are tied, it's not a lack of power. It's a lack of willingness to use it.
But will you cut off aid to Israel so long as they're committing crimes against humanity?
There is a difference between a weapon to protect a country from incoming missiles versus other type. Offensive and defensive weapons are different.
So would you support offensive weapons ban? Like, would you stop any offensive aid to Israel?
That certainly, to me, would be a place to look, but I'm not going to cut off a blanket next sale on a defensive weapon that comes through. No.
I also reject that because, for example, if Senator Slotkin, if you were asked to support defensive weapons for Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that.
No, but Iran, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right? So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at.
Well, so is Russia.
So is Iran. Yeah. So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now. Right?
I'm sorry, this is the difference between allies, partners, and adversaries.
You see, she struggles when confronted with the reality of her choices. She frames U.S. aid as defensive, but the logic falls apart under scrutiny. Israel is being called out for airstrikes that kill thousands of civilians, yet she justifies support because it's an ally. Defense suddenly isn't about protecting people. It's about political alignment. Ask the same question about Iran or Russia, and her reasoning disappears. She refuses to support defensive aid for them, showing that principles aren't universal. They are conditional based on who the US chooses to protect. Let's look at the facts. The US provides over $3 billion annually in military aid to Israel, much of it in weapons that have been used in conflicts killing civilians, destroying schools, hospitals, and homes. Human Rights Watch and the UN confirmed that over 1.9 million Palestinians have been displaced during the latest escalation. Meanwhile, she votes for these aid packages and hides behind party politics to justify it. This isn't about helplessness. This is about selective morality, political allegiance, and silence when human rights are violated. Civilians suffer, neighborhoods vanish, and she refuses to confront it. That's what her words and votes reveal: alignment over accountability.
Even if you accept that they're committing a genocide, you still wouldn't cut off their aid?
I think that defensive aid and offensive aid are different things, and I think at this point,
so
what
if
they're doing
Germany,
every single day,
if not Germany said we want defensive aid, I mean, it's just you have to see where they're all weapons that are being shipped. You know, in another context,
the weapons that they're using right now, I mean, to be honest, if you look at what's happening on the ground, the military part of this conflict is, for the most part, over. What they are doing,
Senator,
every single day is around aid, and they are hurting people
they have
around the
slaughtered
delivery
over
of aid.
1,000 people who were starving people just trying to get aid.
That is
I
not
know you
high,
know this.
That's not high intensity bombs. That's not the weapons that that we were talking about 2 years ago. It's just not. I'm sorry. Every single day, the military reports that I read, they are traditional. Like, this is a military that has a bad strategy. It is not the bombs that we were seeing 2 years ago.
It's not a military that has a bad strategy. The strategy is forced starvation and ethnic cleansing. That's their strategy, and they're accomplishing it very effectively with the full backing of the United States government, including, sadly, Democrats.
You see, she twists words and labels to justify her stance. Defensive versus offensive, and it's just semantics when billions in US weapons are fueling attacks that devastate civilian areas. Labeling a war as defensive doesn't erase the deaths of innocent people or the destruction of homes, schools, and hospitals. The host nails the truth. This isn't just a military with bad strategy, and it's a force that's systematically targeting civilians. Call it what it is: ethnic cleansing. Political language like defensive or offensive becomes meaningless when the outcome is mass civilian suffering. Her justification isn't about strategy or defense. It's about covering up the moral consequences, maintaining political alignment, and avoiding accountability for the harm caused by the very aid she votes to provide. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think about accountability, foreign aid, and the role of politicians in human rights. And as always, stay informed, stay critical, and I'll see you in the next video.